Nearly half of the murders in the last decade in Portland are unsolved. Portland police's clearance rate for solving these violent crimes is below the states and the countries. The money isn't there. This sale was supposed to be finalized by the end of summer, but the Magella Group of Brisbane, Australia has yet to come through with the money to close this deal, and time is ticking. The point here is, can the people of Maine trust you? Since Brevecto's release in 2014, more than 16,000 complaints have been filed with the FDA about adverse effects in dogs who took the chew. That's compared to 3 complaints for dogs who use the topical version of Brevecto. The reports for the chew cite seizures, vomiting, and in some cases, even death. Now, it's important to point out that we don't know financially exactly what's going on behind closed doors. This is a private sale, and neither side is talking. This audio recording we received is from September. It has been authenticated by 2 other Magella employees who were in that staff meeting. Take a listen. Within a week's time in January, Vicki received 2 bills, a $212 bill for December and a $424 bill for outstanding balances from both December and January. A Mainer and former Magella employee who worked at Saddleback is suing the company for almost $30,000 he says he's owed. Do you think the DHHS commissioner should be releasing the case file of Marissa Kennedy to the public?
He should be releasing a lot of information.
Hi, are you Mrs. Berry?
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
I had left you guys a couple voicemails.
Our instructions are not to say anything.
Tight lips and closed doors. I found complaints by the dozens, dating back to 2013. Some are online and some were officially filed to the Florida Division of Consumer Services. Multiple complaints named Jason White and that $498 fee. But they listed various company names: the Reservation Desk, Dream Travel Vacations, Go Travel Forever, and Trade Show Travel Company.
So have you ever worked for any other travel agencies before here?
Really just this.
I also just want to point out that opening the mountain in Saddleback for the Saddleback Resort is not a primary concern for us. Getting Saddleback is. The EB5 program is the reason we're actually doing Saddleback. The mountain and opening the mountain is something we'd like to achieve, but if we don't, we're not going to lose any sleep with regards to it.
6 months ago, Magella CEO Sebastian Mansour said the reason he was buying Saddleback Mountain was for the U.S. EB5 visa program. So what is EB5? It's the government's immigration investor program that lets foreign investors get permanent residency here in the U.S. In rural areas like Rangeley, if you invest at least $500,000 in a business that creates 10 U.S. jobs, you and your family become eligible for green cards. Other investors can chip in too, with the same guidelines: a $500,000 investment and 10 more jobs, and they and their families are eligible for green cards as well. We received more than 2 hours of audio recordings from Magella staff meetings. In that same September meeting, Sebastian Mansour announced the company did not have enough money to pay its employees.
We're an asset-rich, cash-poor situation at the moment. I have a very, very, very small amount of funds. We will be late for the first time on payroll for everybody this week.
We interviewed 2 former Magella employees and a former contractor who asked to remain anonymous for fear of retaliation by the company. They say they weren't paid from September until they quit in early December and still haven't been paid for those 2 months. We don't know if Magella payroll has started again since then. Our repeated requests to talk with CEO Sebastian Mansour have been declined or gone unanswered. We also offered to play this tape for the Berry family, the current owners of Saddleback, who are still waiting for their money from the Magella Group. This is what Bill Berry told our cameras in June.
I hope it stays as a family mountain.
We told the Berry family we have evidence suggesting that the EB5 program is the primary motivation for the deal. Through their advisor, Chris Farmer, they declined our offer and our request for an interview. The former employees and contractor we interviewed did have a message for the people of Rangeley.
This is never happening with Magella.
And from our source who says he keeps up with the Saddleback community online,
Whilst that stays open, there's a glimmer of hope, and that just destroys any opportunity for another deal, another the ability for another investor to come in and do something, the ability for people to move on with their lives.
If you get murdered in the city of Portland, there's a good chance your family could anguish for years over who did it. Darian Richardson was murdered 8 years ago, no arrests. Matt Blanchard's family, 6 years, no closure. David Anderson's family, 2 years. Brian Garcia, 1 year and waiting. 4 of 11 Portland homicide victims over the last decade whose killers have not been caught. You've heard their stories all week. Now it's time to hear from Portland police. The question is simple. Why? The answer, not so much. When it comes to solving a murder, the pressure is on in the first 48 hours.
Within the first 48 hours, statistically, if you haven't been able to develop a suspect, it's going to be a difficult case to prove. And we certainly see that on a regular basis.
This is a critical time, not just for victims' families, but for communities. Cities that solve crimes are safer. We wanted to know how Maine's 2 major cities, Portland and Bangor, stack up when it comes to making arrests for murders. News Center Maine spent 6 months gathering and analyzing extensive homicide investigation data. Before showing you our findings, it helps to understand how homicide investigations are carried out in Maine. Portland and Bangor police are the only 2 departments in the state that investigate their own homicide cases. State police handle the rest. Our investigation reveals that in the 10-year period from 2007 to 2017, the Portland Police Department solved 57% of its homicides. That's 6% lower than the national average, 30% lower than the state of Maine, and 43% lower than the city of Bangor, which has solved every single murder for the last 10 years. What's your reaction to those numbers?
Well, we'd obviously like to see it at 100% for sure.
Portland Police Assistant Chief Vern Malik, a 32-year veteran of the department, says that while the numbers are unfortunate, he's comfortable with the fact that Portland follows a national trend.
There's been a trend since the 1990s across the country of fewer and fewer homicides being solved.
True, and we'll get back to that in a minute. First, why such a drastic difference in clearances between the 2 local departments?
I'm not familiar with what the Bangor numbers are, and I'm not familiar with what the state cases are either. And I think you'd have to do a lot more research into the individual cases to see what exactly they are.
So you can't speak to any kind of possible general challenges that the department may face?
Well, I can say that one of the difficulties that we have is when cases are drug-related, they're a lot more difficult to solve. But, not knowing what the Bangor cases look like, I really couldn't comment.
Fair point. So we went back to the drawing board and broke down the numbers. In the 10-year period we're looking at, Bangor had 18 homicide cases. Portland had 26. In Bangor, 7 of those cases were fights that ended in murder. 4 were domestic violence cases, 3 involved children, 2 were random, and 2 were drug-related. All of those cases were solved.
We see a significant number of our homicides are drug-related, and those are particularly vexing.
If we look at all of Portland's cases, 11 of them were fights that ended in murder, 5 domestic violence cases, 4 either unknown cause or it hasn't been publicized, 2 were self-defense cases, 1 random, and 3 were drug-related. So proportionately speaking, both cities had about the same percentage of drug-related homicides, but nearly half the cases in Portland are still open. We brought our detailed information about each case back to the assistant chief 2 weeks later, but he still wouldn't talk specifics of a potential Portland police problem.
I can't speak to that except to say that I have no information at all about the Bangor cases.
Do you still feel like you can blame a lower clearance number on drug-related homicides if Bangor has the same situation?
I'm not going to say why Bangor solved 100% of their crimes. I can tell you that there was a 10-year period where Portland had a 100% clearance rate in homicides as well.
He's right. From 1998 to 2008, Portland solved all its homicides. In the 10 years since, 11 homicides, nearly half, have gone unsolved. In our first interview, Malik told us homicides are the most serious crimes Portland PD investigates.
And we put all of our resources behind investigating those.
Again, we crunched the numbers. Portland's population is twice the size of Bangor's. Its police force has more than 140 officers, while Bangor's has 76. Both departments have a 12-detective unit that investigates homicides. We asked Chief Malik if he feels that a 12-detective unit is enough for Maine's biggest city.
I don't feel that having a pool of 12 detectives that could potentially investigate what averages out to be 2 homicides a year is inadequate. So I'm very comfortable with the staffing levels that we have.
When asked about those lower clearance rates,
Do you see that as a problem, or do you see that as just the way it is?
I always want to have a 100% clearance rate.
in our first conversation, Malik said more communication with the public could help close these cold cases.
As a matter of fact, your interview and questions that you've asked have prompted us to look at our website and say, why did we wait 2 years to put it on the website? So why not 6 months?
So that list of unsolved homicides on your website, you wait 2 years before you actually put the profile up?
That's what we have been doing in the past, yeah, but I think we're ready to change that now and perhaps go to, within 6 months.
When we came back with more questions 2 weeks later, he walked it back.
2 years seems to be an average that departments look at.
So is that something that has been decided that will change, or?
No, we haven't had any further discussions on that.
Malik says he doesn't see a need for change in the department.
We are always looking to improve, no matter what it is. We're looking to improve. But at this point, there isn't any glaring shortfall that we need to address.
A clearance rate below the state and national average. For victims' loved ones, it's not about numbers. It's about knowing who and why. Malik says it's up to witnesses to come forward and help solve these murders.
Do you foresee any need for change?
I don't know what we would do differently right now. I feel like we are putting 100% of our resources behind it.
So if you missed any part of these series, we encourage you to go on our websites or mobile apps. All of our stories are posted there, as well as several digital extras that people can look into as well.
We can't comment. Believe me, I'd love to be able to share with you right now what I know, but I can't.
That's just not true. As state law shows, DHHS has every right to tell the public what it knows about Marissa Kennedy's history of abuse. The agency is choosing not to.
There's a deep public interest in what happened and what caused the child's death or very serious bodily injury. And that under certain circumstances, they are allowed to comment or to share information.
Attorney General Janet Mills and DHHS Commissioner Ricker Hamilton spoke over the phone this morning. And Hamilton says he was told not to discuss specifics of Marissa's case.
I was told today in my brief conversation with the Attorney General that I would be able to talk about Child Protective Services, the type of services that we offer, what we're doing internally.
The AG says that's not how she remembers the conversation.
Have you told him, have you given him guidelines on what to disclose and what not to disclose?
No, because I'm not sure what they want to disclose.
Commissioner Hamilton fears telling the public about DHHS involvement with Marissa Kennedy would jeopardize the investigation into her accused killers, Mom Sharon Carrillo and stepdad Julio Carrillo.
I don't want to jeopardize the criminal investigation.
The AG is hoping that the state's Government Accountability Agency, OPEGA, will immediately open an investigation into DHHS practices and Marissa Kennedy's case. She says telling the public what happened would not impact the case against Marissa's parents.
Do you think an OPEGA investigation now and that, report possibly coming out could jeopardize the homicide case in any way?
No, I don't think so.
The power of information lies in the DHHS commissioner's hands. And while he's choosing to keep the information private, he hopes Mainers can still trust the department. How can you guarantee that Mainers can trust the work of DHHS in such a crucial time like this?
I'm giving you and the people my word. I've been around for a long time. We're committed to this. We're going to get to the bottom of this.